The sound of laughter shouldn't hurt this much. I sat perfectly still at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded neatly in my lap to hide their trembling, while across the aisle, my husband Nathan laughed with his hand resting casually on his mistress's lower back. His mother Eleanor sat beside them, her designer handbag placed precisely at her feet, her smile sharp as she whispered something that made them all laugh again. My attorney, David Torres, placed his hand briefly on my wrist. "They're doing it on purpose, Olivia. Don't give them the reaction they want." I nodded once, my spine rigid in the charcoal gray dress I'd purchased specifically for today. The dress that had seemed so appropriate when I'd bought it now felt like armor too thin to protect me. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, more intimate, with dark wood paneling and the Connecticut state flag hanging limply beside the American one. Outside, October rain tapped against the windows, a steady rhythm that matched my heartbeat. "All rise," the bailiff called, and I rose automatically, my eyes still fixed on Nathan. He straightened his brioni tie, the one I'd given him for our 5th anniversary, and winked at Vanessa before turning to face the bench. Judge Marlene Santos entered briskly, her black robes flowing as she took her seat. "Be seated," she said, her voice carrying the slight accent of her Puerto Rican heritage. Chun versus Chun, case number 47293B. Nathan's attorney, Martin Caldwell, senior partner at the firm where Nathan had just made junior partner, stepped forward with a confident air of a man who'd never lost a case. "Your Honor, before we begin, we'd like to request a continuance. There are several financial documents that the plaintiff has yet to provide, and we—" "Mr. Caldwell," Judge Santos interrupted, peering over her reading glasses, "this is the 3rd continuance your client has requested. My patience is not infinite. Your Honor, with all due respect." Respect would be acknowledging that these delays appear strategic rather than necessary. Judge Santos turned her attention to David. "Mr. Torres, your response?" David stood, straightening his more modest suit. "Your Honor, we've provided all required documentation. Mr. Chen's financial disclosures, however, contain several inconsistencies we're prepared to address today." I watched Nathan's face, the slight tightening around his eyes the only indication that he was concerned. In the 14 years we'd been together, 10 of them married, I'd learned to read those small tells better than anyone. 10 years. A decade of my life, gone. As David and Martin argued legal points, I allowed myself to slip backward in time, remembering how this all began. Nathan Chen had been brilliant even as a first-year law student at Yale, with a quick mind and quicker smile. I was finishing my master's in accounting at the same university when we met at a mutual friend's party. "That guy hasn't stopped staring at you all night," my roommate had whispered. I dismissed her. Men like Nathan didn't notice women like me, practical and focused, more comfortable with numbers than networking. But he'd approached anyway, his confidence tempered with genuine curiosity about my thesis on corporate tax structures. "Most people's eyes glaze over when I talk about taxation," I'd laughed after 30 minutes of animated conversation. "I'm not most people," he'd responded, his dark eyes holding mine. "And neither are you." We were engaged 8 months later, married in a small ceremony after I'd started my job at Keller and Associates. Nathan still had 2 years of law school left, and my steady income supported us through the lean student years. "When I make partner someday," he promised the night before his graduation, "I'm going to give you the life you deserve. The vacations, the house in the suburbs, all of it." I'd smiled, running my fingers through his hair. "I already have what I want." The memory dissolved as Judge Santos spoke my name, pulling me back to the present. "Mrs. Chun, your husband has alleged that you were aware of and approved his financial decisions regarding the joint accounts. Is this accurate?" I cleared my throat, suddenly aware of every eye in the courtroom. "No, Your Honor, it is not. I discovered in March of this year that approximately $217,000 had been withdrawn from our joint savings account over the previous 11 months. When confronted, my husband claimed the money was invested in a client's business venture." Nathan's attorney interrupted, "Your Honor, these were legitimate investments that Mrs. Chun was fully briefed on. We have documentation." "The documentation you're referring to," David interjected, is a single email Mr. Chen sent to my client indicating money moves without specifying amounts, accounts, or purposes. Eleanor Chen made a sound of derision, just loud enough to be heard. Judge Santos's gaze flickered to her briefly. Mr. Torres, the judge continued, your filing indicates financial misconduct beyond these withdrawals? Yes, Your Honor. David nodded at me, our agreed-upon signal. I opened my leather portfolio, removing a USB drive. Your Honor, I've compiled financial records dating back 3 years that show a pattern of misappropriation. Nathan leaned forward, whispering urgently to Martin. Vanessa placed her hand on his thigh, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light, a bracelet I recognized from the Tiffany catalog I'd caught Nathan studying last Christmas. A gift he'd never given to me. Judge Santos accepted the drive. The court will review these records. In the meantime, let's address the matter of the marital home. As the proceedings continued, I remembered the night everything changed, the night our carefully constructed life began to crumble. It had been an ordinary Tuesday in March, unseasonably cold. I'd stayed late at work, reconciling accounts for a major client, and arrived home after 9. The house, the colonial with the red door we'd purchased 2 years earlier, was dark except for the blue glow of a television in the den. Nathan, I called, setting down my briefcase. No answer. I found him asleep on the couch, his phone on his chest, rising and falling with each breath. As I reached to wake him, a message notification illuminated the screen. Miss you already. Your wife working late again? Lucky me. V. My hand froze midair. The world tilted sideways, reality rearranging itself around those few words. I must have made a sound because Nathan stirred, his eyes opening and focusing on my face. Then he registered his phone in my hand. Olivia, he started, suddenly wide awake. Who's V? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too calm. It's not what you think. I think, I said, still in that unnaturally calm voice, that you should tell me who V is. He sat up, running a hand through his hair, the gesture so familiar it hurt. It's just a colleague, Vanessa Woodley, the new paralegal at the firm. And why does Vanessa miss you? Why is she lucky that I'm working late? You're overreacting. It's just friendly banter. Show me the rest of the messages. This is ridiculous. You're invading my privacy based on one text that you've misinterpreted. I placed his phone on the coffee table between us. Show me or I call her right now. His expression hardened, a look I'd never seen directed at me before. This is beneath you, Olivia. I'm going to bed. We can discuss your trust issues tomorrow when you're thinking rationally. He'd left me standing there, the world I thought I knew disintegrating around me. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did what I did best, I investigated. By morning, I knew that Vanessa Woodley was 26, a recent graduate of Columbia Law, and had been working at Caldwell, Ramsey, and Price for 7 months. I also knew, thanks to bank statements and credit card records I'd accessed online, that Nathan had purchased jewelry, weekend getaways, and dinners I'd never seen or tasted. When he came downstairs the next morning, I was waiting with printed evidence spread across the kitchen island. Friendly banter costs a lot these days, I said, sliding the statement for a $3,200 hotel stay toward him. Was that when you told me you were at the Chicago conference? His face went through a series of emotions, shock, anger, calculation, and finally, a strange sort of relief. I didn't want to hurt you. How considerate. It just happened, Olivia. These things happen in our circles. Most people understand that. Our circles? I repeated, the phrase stinging like a slap. The firm, the legal community. It's different from your accounting world. There's pressure, expectations. Vanessa understands that world. And I don't. It wasn't a question. You've never tried to. You're content with your small firm, your predictable clients. You could have aimed higher, joined one of the big four, been part of something impressive. But you chose comfort over ambition. Each word landed like a blade, precisely aimed at insecurities I'd never voiced. I'd chosen Keller and Associates because they offered work-life balance, because I wanted to start a family someday. The family Nathan had always said He wanted to. How long? I asked. He sighed, as if my question were tedious. Does it matter? It matters to me. 7 months. The timeline clicked into place. Since she started at the firm. Yes. Does your mother know? His hesitation answered before his words did. What does my mother have to do with this? Eleanor hated me from the beginning. I want to know if she's been laughing behind my back too. My mother respects you. Your mother tolerates me because I funded your law degree. Answer the question, Nathan. He looked away. She's met Vanessa. At firm events. And she thinks Vanessa is better suited to my career ambitions. I nodded slowly, absorbing this final betrayal. I want you out of this house today. Be reasonable, Olivia. This is my home too. The home I put the down payment on. The home that's in my name because your student loans affected our debt-to-income ratio. You have until 6 tonight. You're being emotional. No, I interrupted, my voice finally breaking. I'm being merciful, because what I want to do right now would result in an assault charge. In the courtroom, Judge Santos's voice pulled me back again. Mrs. Chun, can you elaborate on the circumstances that led to your separation? I looked directly at Nathan for the first time that day. His face was composed, but his left hand tapped silently against the table. Another tell. I discovered text messages between my husband and Ms. Woodley in March of this year. I said clearly. When confronted, Mr. Chin admitted to a 7-month affair. I asked him to leave our home that day. Vanessa shifted uncomfortably beside Nathan. Eleanor's expression remained impassive. And did Mr. Chin comply with your request? The judge asked. No, Your Honor. He refused to leave for 3 weeks, during which time he removed various valuables from the home, including artwork we had purchased together and family heirlooms that had belonged to my grandmother. Nathan leaned over to whisper something to Martin, who immediately stood. Your Honor, these items were either gifts from Mr. Chen's family or purchases made primarily by Mr. Chen. We have receipts. Were these receipts paid from joint accounts? Judge Santos interrupted. Martin hesitated. Some may have been, Your Honor. Then ownership is not as clear-cut as you suggest. The judge made a note before continuing. Mrs. Chin, did there come a time when Mr. Chin did vacate the residence? Yes, Your Honor. In early April, after I changed the locks. A murmur rippled through the small audience in the courtroom. Eleanor made another noise of disapproval, louder this time. Ma'am in the gallery, Judge Santos said without looking up, one more disruption and you'll be removed. Is that understood? Eleanor's face registered shock that someone would speak to her that way. Judge Santos turned back to me. Mrs. Chen, your financial disclosures show a significant income disparity between you and your husband. Are you seeking alimony? Before I could answer, Nathan laughed, a short, dismissive sound that echoed in the quiet courtroom. Something amusing, Mr. Chen? The judge asked, her tone dangerously neutral. I apologize, Your Honor, Nathan replied, not looking apologetic at all. It's just that my wife is an accountant who specializes in tax law. The irony of her seeking alimony isn't lost on me. The irony I see, Judge Santos replied, is a man who seems to find humor in divorce proceedings. Nathan's smile faded. To answer your question, Your Honor, I said, I am not seeking alimony. I am requesting an equitable division of assets accumulated during our marriage, restoration of property removed from our home, and specific performance regarding the loan agreement Mr. Chun and I signed when I paid for his law school education. Nathan leaned forward. What loan agreement? Martin placed a restraining hand on his arm. Your Honor, we've seen no documentation of any loan agreement. David stood. If it pleases the court, we have the original loan agreement, signed and notarized in 2013, outlining repayment terms for the $162,879 Mrs. Chen provided for Mr. Chen's education. With interest, the amount now due is approximately $219,000. As David presented the document to the court clerk, I watched Nathan's face. He'd forgotten about the agreement, or perhaps had never taken it seriously to begin with. It had been my idea, a protection suggested by my father before he passed away. Nathan had signed it with a laugh, calling it unnecessary but cute. You actually kept that? Nathan hissed across the aisle. I met his gaze steadily. I keep excellent records, Nathan. You used to appreciate that about me. The hearing progressed through financial disclosures, property disputes, and witness testimony. Maya, my best friend since college, testified about the changes she'd observed in Nathan's behavior over the previous year. The missed dinners, the secretive phone calls, the casual cruelty. He told her, in front of me and two other friends, that her wardrobe was embarrassingly suburban for the wife of a rising attorney. Maya said, her voice tight with controlled anger. This was at his firm's holiday party last December. Olivia had just spent hours getting ready, wearing a dress she'd saved for months to buy. Nathan rolled his eyes, whispering something to Vanessa that made her smile sympathetically. Eleanor patted his hand as if he were the victim of unfair accusations. As lunch recess approached, Judge Santos reviewed her notes. We'll reconvene at 1:30 to hear from Mr. Chen's witnesses and to address the matter of this loan agreement. Court is in recess. The instant the judge left the courtroom, Eleanor was at Nathan's side, her voice carrying clearly. This is all so unnecessary, darling. She's being vindictive because she couldn't keep you interested. Vanessa nodded in agreement. Classic reaction from someone who feels inadequate. Their laughter followed me as David escorted me from the courtroom. They're desperate, he said quietly as we walked toward the cafeteria. Judge Santos sees right through them. It doesn't feel that way, I admitted. They seem so confident. Arrogance isn't the same as confidence. Trust me, Olivia. I've known Nathan since law school. He always underestimates his opponents. Is that what I am now? His opponent? David stopped, turning to face me. You're someone who deserves justice. And I'm going to help you get it. We ate lunch in relative silence, reviewing our strategy for the afternoon. I couldn't eat much. My stomach knotted with anxiety. As we prepared to return to the courtroom, David received a text that made him frown. What is it? I asked. Martin wants to discuss settlement terms. Now? After months of delays and stonewalling? David's smile was grim. Like I said, desperate. We met Martin and Nathan in a small conference room. Vanessa and Eleanor waited outside, their expressions curious. Let's be reasonable, Martin began without preamble. A protracted court battle benefits no one. David leaned back in his chair. We've been reasonable for months, Martin. Your client has not. My client is prepared to offer a generous settlement. The house, half the investment accounts, and a lump sum of $100,000. And the loan? I asked. Nathan scoffed. That was never a real loan, Olivia. You know that. The signed, notarized document suggests otherwise. You want to nickel and dime me after 10 years of marriage? After I made you part of a world you never could have accessed otherwise. The familiar sting of his words hit its target, but I kept my expression neutral. I want what I'm legally entitled to, Nathan. Nothing more, nothing less. This is beneath you, he said, echoing his words from that night in March. No, I replied, gathering my notes. What's beneath me is allowing you to gaslight me into thinking I didn't matter. We're done here. As David and I stood to leave, Nathan's composure finally cracked. You think you're so clever with your little spreadsheets and records, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. I made partner for a reason. I know every judge in this district. Except Judge Santos, I said quietly. What? You don't know Judge Santos. She was appointed last year from the public defender's office. She's never worked in corporate law and has no connections to your firm. The color drained from Nathan's face. How do you? Research, Nathan. It's what accountants do. Back in the courtroom, the atmosphere had shifted subtly. Martin and Nathan whispered intensely, occasionally glancing toward the judge's empty bench. Eleanor looked less composed, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her designer purse. When Judge Santos returned, she carried a folder that hadn't been there before. Before we continue, I'd like to address some discrepancies in the financial records provided by Mr. Chen. Martin stood quickly. Your Honor, if I might. You might not, Mr. Caldwell. Please be seated. The judge opened the folder. Mr. Chen, can you explain why transfers totaling $341,000 were made from your joint accounts to an LLC registered in the Cayman Islands? Nathan's face remained carefully blank. Those were legitimate investments, Your Honor. In Oceanic Holdings, LLC, an entity that appears to have no business operations beyond receiving funds from you and 3 other attorneys at your firm? The courtroom fell silent. I felt a cold certainty settle over me. This was bigger than our divorce, bigger than Nathan's affair. Judge Santos continued, I've also received information that these transfers coincide with settlements from 4 of your firm's largest class action cases. Cases where the settlement amounts reported to the court differ significantly from those reported to your clients. Martin was on his feet again. Your Honor, these allegations are completely unfounded and irrelevant to these proceedings. I disagree, Mr. Caldwell. If Mr. Chen has been diverting funds illegally, that directly impacts the marital assets under consideration. Judge Santos turned to Nathan. Mr. Chen, are you aware that misappropriation of client funds is grounds for disbarment and criminal charges? Nathan's carefully constructed facade began to crack. Your Honor, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. I'm sure there is. And you'll have ample opportunity to provide it to the Connecticut Bar Association and possibly federal prosecutors. Judge Santos turned to me. Mrs. Chen, did you have knowledge of these transfers? No, Your Honor. I discovered unusual financial activity, but not the full extent or purpose of the transfers. Yet you compiled detailed records of the transactions? Yes, Your Honor. When I noticed the discrepancies, I began tracking all financial activity in our accounts. It's what I'm trained to do. Judge Santos nodded. Your attention to detail may have uncovered something significant. I'm referring this matter to the appropriate authorities for further investigation. Eleanor stood abruptly. This is outrageous. My son is a respected attorney. This woman is clearly manipulating the court out of spite. Miss Chen, the judge said sharply, you were warned about disruptions. Bailiff, please escort this woman from the courtroom. As the bailiff approached, Eleanor's indignation turned to shock. Do you know who I am? My husband was State Attorney General. Former State Attorney General, Judge Santos corrected. And the law applies equally to everyone in my courtroom. As Eleanor was escorted out, her protests echoing down the hallway, I caught Nathan's expression, a mixture of panic and fury that sent a chill down my spine. Vanessa leaned away from him slightly, her earlier adoration replaced with uncertainty. The afternoon session took on a surreal quality as the implications of Judge Santos's revelations rippled through the proceedings. Martin requested multiple recesses to confer with Nathan, whose confident demeanor had evaporated completely. When the final witness had been questioned, Nathan's colleague, who awkwardly admitted to being asked to lie about Nathan's whereabouts on multiple occasions, Judge Santos closed her file and addressed the courtroom. Having heard all testimony and reviewed all evidence, I'm prepared to rule on the division of assets in this dissolution. She looked directly at Nathan. Mr. Chen, your conduct during these proceedings has been dismissive, obstructive, and at times, potentially criminal. Your attempt to conceal assets is particularly troubling. Nathan stared at the table, unable to meet her gaze. Mrs. Chen, the judge continued, turning to me, your meticulous record-keeping and forthrightness with the court are noted and appreciated. I nodded slightly, hands still clasped in my lap. My ruling is as follows. Mrs. Chen is awarded the marital home and its contents. Mr. Chen is ordered to return all items removed from the property within 7 days. The investment accounts will be divided equally after a forensic accounting examination is complete. Mr. Chen's retirement accounts, having been established during the marriage, will be divided with 65% to Mrs. Chen and 35% to Mr. Chen. Martin started to object, but a look from Judge Santos silenced him. Furthermore, she continued, the loan agreement presented to this court is valid and enforceable. Mr. Chen is ordered to repay the full amount of $219,000 to Mrs. Chen within 90 days. Nathan's head snapped up. That's impossible, Your Honor. I don't have liquid assets of that amount. Then I suggest you liquidate non-liquid assets, Mr. Chin. Perhaps begin with a boat purchased last year that doesn't appear anywhere in your financial disclosures. Vanessa's eyes widened as she turned to look at Nathan. This was clearly news to her as well. Finally, Judge Santos said, given the evidence of potential financial misconduct beyond the scope of this divorce, I am freezing all assets held by Mr. Chin pending investigation by appropriate authorities. This court retains jurisdiction to modify these orders as necessary based on the outcome of that investigation. She looked between Nathan and me. Are there any questions regarding my ruling? Nathan remained silent, his world collapsing around him. I took a deep breath and spoke clearly. No, Your Honor. Thank you. Then this matter is concluded. Judge Santos struck her gavel. Court is adjourned. As people began to move, Nathan turned to Vanessa, reaching for her hand. She pulled away, gathering her purse. Vanessa, he said, his voice strained. We should discuss this. Discuss what, Nathan? She replied, standing. How you lied to me too. Or how I'm now associated with someone being investigated for fraud. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, she cut him off. I believed everything you told me about Olivia. That she was cold, unambitious, not supportive of your career. But she wasn't the liar, was she? With that, she walked out, leaving Nathan alone at the table, Martin having already moved away to speak with the court clerk. I gathered my portfolio, a strange sense of calm washing over me. It wasn't jubilation or even satisfaction, just the quiet certainty that justice had been served. As David and I prepared to leave, Nathan approached, his earlier arrogance replaced with desperation. Olivia, we need to talk. No, we don't, I replied, continuing to pack my bag. You don't understand what you've done. This investigation could destroy everything. My career, my reputation. I finally looked up at him. You destroyed those things yourself, Nathan. I just kept good records. I'll lose my license. I could go to prison. Actions have consequences. After everything we meant to each other, 10 years of marriage, and you can just walk away knowing you've ruined me. I studied his face, the face I'd once loved more than anything, now twisted with fear and resentment. You didn't think about those 10 years when you were with her. You didn't think about our marriage when you mocked me to your colleagues or stole from our accounts. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But this is karma, Nathan. I closed my portfolio with finality, and unlike mercy, it's perfectly measured to the offense. As I walked away, I heard him call after me, his voice breaking. What am I supposed to do now? I paused at the courtroom door, looking back one last time. Figure it out. You've always thought you were the smartest person in the room. Prove it. Outside, the October rain had stopped, and weak sunshine broke through the clouds. Maya waited on the courthouse steps, rising when she saw me emerge. Is it over? She asked, embracing me. Yes, I said, the word both an ending and a beginning. It's over. How do you feel? I considered the question, watching as a flock of birds rose suddenly from a nearby tree, their wings catching the light. Lighter, I said finally, like I can breathe again. As we descended the steps, I didn't look back at the courthouse. There was nothing left for me there, nothing but shadows and echoes of a life I no longer recognized as mine. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, calls from investigators, paperwork, the practicalities of rebuilding a life. But today, in this moment, I had something Nathan never truly understood the value of, the truth in all its painful, liberating clarity. And unlike mercy, it had been perfectly measured to the offense.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.